I didn't cry when I read it. That's the detail people always expect to hear first. Tears. The shaking hands. The breakdown. But none of that happened. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot, early morning quiet wrapping itself around the house. The coffee machine had just clicked off. Steam curled up from my mug like nothing in the world was wrong. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled past. Ordinary. Forgettable. Then my phone buzzed. One notification. An email. From my daughter. No subject line. Just her name sitting there, bold and centered like a title. I smiled before I even opened it. That instinct doesn't disappear easily. I assumed it was nerves. Or excitement. Or maybe she needed reassurance. We'd talked about the wedding only weeks ago. I had no idea this message would change how I saw everything. The email was short. Too controlled. Too polished. It opened with my name. Not mom. Not hi love. Just my name, typed cleanly like a label on a folder. That's when something inside me paused. She explained that the final decisions had been made. The guest list was complete. The venue required intimacy. Her fiancé's family had strong preferences. Then came the sentence I keep replaying in my head. They thought it would be best if I watched the ceremony online. Like a distant relative. Like a coworker who couldn't get time off. Like someone optional. She pasted a link underneath. Video call. Smiley face. And then one final line that landed like a quiet insult wrapped in politeness. It'll be just like being there. I stared at my phone. My coffee went cold in my hand. My body didn't react the way I expected it to. No shaking. No racing heart. Just a strange stillness. Something inside me didn't break. Shifted. Typed 4 words back. That's all I had. Bae. Enjoy your day. No questions. No argument. No emotion. I closed my phone and stood there in the silence, realizing something I wasn't ready to admit yet. That message didn't just uninvite me from a wedding. It erased me from a moment I had spent my entire life preparing for. And as I rinsed my mug and got dressed for work like it was any other Tuesday, a thought crept in. Soft, dangerous, impossible to ignore. If I wasn't needed there, then maybe I wasn't needed the way I thought I was. And I had no idea what that realization was about to cost everyone. I've replayed that morning 1,000 times since. Not the email. The silence after. Because that silence forced me to hear something I'd drowned out for years. I had built my entire life around being needed. My name is Helen Brooks. I'm 58 years old. Widow. I've lived in the same quiet stretch of Washington state for over 2 decades. The kind of place where neighbors wave but don't ask questions. Where life looks calm from the outside. I've worked as an office coordinator at a law firm for nearly 20 years. It's not impressive work. No one applauds it. But it's steady. And after my husband died suddenly. No warning, no goodbye. Steady was all I cared about. Our kids were still teenagers when it happened. One day I was nagging about homework and laundry. The next, I was standing in a hospital hallway signing forms with hands that didn't feel like mine anymore. There was no backup plan. So I became the plan. I worked extra hours. I gave up weekends. I canceled vacations before they were even booked. I told myself there would be time later. There never was. Every dollar I saved went to my children, Rachel and Evan. Every decision revolved around making sure their lives were easier than mine had been. When Rachel changed majors halfway through college, I paid without hesitation. When she moved across the country for a job that lasted barely 6 months, I covered the deposit, the flight, the emergency cushion. When she called me crying after a breakup at 27, I flew out, slept on her couch, and made tea in a kitchen that didn't feel like home. And Evan, when he wanted to buy a house before he was ready, I co-signed the mortgage. When he needed help furnishing it, I wrote the check. No lectures. No guilt. I never kept score. That's what good mothers do, right? But sitting at my desk that day, staring at contracts I couldn't focus on, something finally hit me. That email didn't hurt because I wasn't invited. It hurt because it made me feel useful. Past tense. Like I had served my purpose. My boss noticed I was off. He brought me coffee without asking. Didn't press. Didn't pry. That small kindness nearly unraveled me. After all the noise in my head, it reminded me I still existed. Around lunchtime my phone lit up. Rachel. Again. Voicemails. Text. Missed calls stacking up like demands. Mom, answer. This isn't funny. We need to talk. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I sat there sipping my coffee and wondered something I'd never allowed myself to ask before. What would happen if I stopped answering? What would break if I stopped showing up on cue? That afternoon, I made a decision I didn't fully understand yet. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to explain myself. I was going to act. And the place I drove after work would change everything. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I turned the car toward a place that held more power than anyone realized. And made a choice no one saw coming. I didn't plan it. That's the truth. I just didn't turn toward home. I was stopped at the red light 2 blocks from my house. The same light I'd waited at thousands of times before. The same left turn I'd taken automatically, without thought, without question. But this time my hand stayed still on the wheel. The light turned green. And instead of turning left, I went straight. I felt it immediately. That sharp awareness you get when you do something you're not supposed to do. My heart started beating faster, like it knew something important was happening before my brain caught up. I told myself I was just going for a drive. That I needed air. Time to think. That was a lie. Because 10 minutes later, I was pulling into the parking lot of my bank. The place where I'd stored every safety net I'd built with exhaustion and sacrifice. The place where I'd moved money around like a quiet magician, always making things work, always making sure my kids never felt the panic I had swallowed for years. I sat in the car for a full minute before getting out. My hands were steady. That scared me. Inside, everything smelled like polished floors and recycled air. Familiar. Predictable. Mark, the branch manager, spotted me immediately and smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. Helen, he said warmly. Good to see you. I almost turned around. Instead, I followed him into his office and sat down across from the desk where I'd signed paperwork for college funds, emergency withdrawals, retirement plans I'd never been sure I'd get to enjoy. My voice came out calm. Come. I need to cancel a wire transfer. Mark blinked. Which one? The one scheduled for later this week. He pulled it up on his screen. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That's a significant amount. He nodded. I know. There was a pause. The kind where people expect you to fill the silence with explanations. I didn't. Finally, he cleared his throat. May I ask why? I looked at him and told the truth, without details. Things changed. He studied the screen again, then looked up. It hasn't processed yet. You caught it just in time. Just in time. Those words landed heavier than he realized. He hesitated. Are you sure? I thought of the email. The link. The smiley face. Yes, I said. I'm sure. He slid the paperwork across the desk. I signed my name without shaking, without pausing, without looking back. And just like that, the money was no longer theirs to count on. When I walked back to my car, my phone was vibrating non-stop in my purse. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I drove home in silence. By the time I pulled into my driveway, there were missed calls. Voicemails. Messages stacking up like pressure. One voicemail stood out. My son's voice this time. Mom, please don't do this. I turned my phone off. Inside the house, everything felt the same. The clock ticking. The fridge humming. The quiet waiting for me to collapse into it. Instead, I opened a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for a holiday that never happened. Poured a glass. Took it out onto the porch. The sun was setting. Birds were settling into trees. A neighbor's dog barked in the distance. And as I sat there, sipping slowly, the memories came. Every birthday I planned alone. Every holiday meal eaten with my phone nearby, waiting. Every sacrifice no one noticed. That's when I realized something terrifying. I hadn't just canceled a payment. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And soon they were going to show up. I didn't know who would knock on my door that night, but I knew whatever came next wouldn't be quiet. The knock didn't sound angry. That's what unsettled me the most. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It was firm. Controlled. Like whoever was on the other side already believed they had the right to be there. Checked the clock. Just past 9. I considered not answering. I really did. There was a part of me that wanted to sit perfectly still, wine glass in hand, and let the moment pass. But curiosity has always been my weakness. So I stood up, walked to the door and opened it. It was Evan. Still in his work clothes. Tie loosened. Sleeves rolled up. His phone clenched in his hand like evidence. He didn't wait for an invitation. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" he asked, stepping inside. "Rachel is losing it." I closed the door slowly behind him. "Hello to you too," I said. He exhaled sharply, already pacing the living room like he'd rehearsed this speech. "She says you're pulling out of the wedding. That you're being difficult." I laughed. Short sound. Almost involuntary. "Difficult," I repeated. "For not attending a wedding I was told to watch on a screen." He stopped pacing. Shifted his weight. "You know it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. "Her fiancé's parents are paying for most of it," he finally said. "They're traditional. They want control over the guest list." I raised an eyebrow. "Traditional?" "Yes," he said carefully. "You know how they are." I took a sip of my wine. I already gave $30,000. I was about to give 50 more. His head snapped up. "Wait, 50 more?" I corrected. "Not anymore." The color drained from his face. "Mom, they're counting on that money. The venue, the catering, everything's based on money I was never invited to enjoy." I finished calmly. His voice rose. "She's your daughter. And I'm her mother," I said quietly. "A mother who was told to stay home and click a link." Silence stretched between us. Then he said it. "You always make everything about yourself." Something inside me finally broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Cleanly. "Get out," I said. He blinked. "What?" "You heard me," I said. "Get out of my house." "Mom." "No," I said, firmer now. "I've spent my entire life making sure everyone else was okay. I'm done being the villain in a story I wrote with love." He stood there for a moment, looking like he wanted to argue, like he wanted to say something that would put me back in my place. Then he turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. It wasn't loud, but it echoed. I stood there in the middle of my living room, heart pounding, waiting for guilt to rush in. Never did. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar. Relief. Freedom. And I knew, absolutely knew, that morning was going to be worse. By sunrise, my phone would be flooded with messages. And the real pressure would begin. My phone was already buzzing when I woke up. Not ringing. Buzzing. That low, relentless vibration you feel before you even open your eyes. Like something urgent has been waiting all night just to pounce the moment you breathe again. I didn't check the time. I didn't need to. I already knew what I'd find. Messages. Missed calls. Notifications stacked so high they blurred together. I rolled onto my side, stared at the ceiling, and felt something unexpected settle in my chest. Not peace. Not yet. But clarity. Eventually I reached for the phone. 43 missed calls. Most of them from Rachel. The first few messages were clipped. Controlled. Carefully worded. "Mom, we need to talk. Please answer your phone. This isn't funny." Then the tone shifted. The politeness cracked. "Why are you doing this? This is childish. You're embarrassing me." I scrolled without responding. And then came the panic. The venue just called. The payment didn't go through. "We're going to lose everything if we don't fix this today." One message stood out. Sent at 3:24 a.m. "I don't understand why you're doing this to me." I actually smiled into my coffee. Of course she didn't understand. She'd grown up with my sacrifices woven so tightly into her life that she never questioned where the comfort came from. The safety, the stability, was just there. Like electricity, like running water. Always available, always invisible. But not this time. At work I tried to focus. Contracts, emails, routine tasks that suddenly felt grounding. My phone stayed face down on my desk, vibrating every few minutes like a living thing. Late morning, an email popped into my personal inbox. The subject line stopped me cold. "Please don't ruin my wedding." Opened it. The message was long, emotional, strategic. She acknowledged the live stream decision, briefly. Framed it as a misunderstanding. Then moved quickly to logistics. They'd lost the venue deposit. The caterer was threatening to walk if payment wasn't made by end of day. Something about Paris time. Her fiancé's parents were furious. And then the line that told me everything I needed to know. "We can talk about you attending the ceremony. But we need the funds first." There it was. Not an apology. Not regret. Negotiation. As if my presence at my own daughter's wedding was something that could be unlocked with the right payment. I closed the email without replying. Around noon my boss stopped by my desk. "Lunch?" he asked. "There's a new Italian place down the street." Almost said no. Old habits die hard. But something in me had shifted. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." Over pasta he talked about his grandkids. How exhausting and beautiful it was to chase after them. Then he paused, studying me gently. "You seem lighter today," he said. I surprised myself by telling him everything. When I finished, he didn't judge. He didn't try to fix it. He just nodded. "Sometimes," he said, "the hardest part of love is setting boundaries with the people we've given the most to." That afternoon the messages kept coming. I didn't answer a single one. Because for the first time in my life, my silence wasn't avoidance. It was a statement. And I had a feeling someone else was about to show up at my door to challenge it. That evening when I pulled into my driveway, I saw someone waiting for me. Someone I never expected to be part of this story. I knew it wasn't going to end quietly. But I didn't expect her. I pulled into my driveway just as the sky was dimming, that blue-gray hour where everything feels suspended between day and night. My porch light flicked on automatically, washing the front of the house in a soft glow. And that's when I saw someone sitting on the steps. Not pacing. Not knocking. Waiting. For a moment my stomach tightened. I considered staying in the car, pretending I hadn't seen her. But then she stood up, brushing imaginary lint from her coat, and I recognized her face. Lena. Rachel's best friend since childhood. She used to spend weekends at our house. Sleepovers, burnt cookies, movie marathons that ran until sunrise. I hadn't seen her in years. Not since Rachel moved away and built a life that slowly stopped including me. "Helen," she said softly when I stepped out of the car. "I'm sorry to show up like this." Her voice wasn't accusatory. It wasn't panicked. It was careful. "It's fine," I said, unlocking the door. "Do you want some tea?" She followed me inside, glancing around the house like it still belonged to a version of us she remembered. The walls, the furniture, the quiet. Filled the kettle. Let the silence stretch. "Rachel sent you." "Yes." Lena hesitated. "She's not okay," she said finally. "They lost the venue. The florist pulled out. Her fiancé's parents are threatening to cancel everything." I set 2 mugs on the counter. "She knows she messed up," Lena continued. "She just doesn't know how to fix it." I looked at her then. Really looked. "Is that why you're here?" "Yes." "To fix it?" She shook her head. "No. I'm here to ask." Waited. "Is there anything she can say?" Lena said carefully. "Anything she can do to change your mind?" Question hung between us. I thought about the email, the link, the smiley face. I thought about every time I'd been invisible until money or help was needed. Would an apology change how it felt to be excluded? To be reduced to a bank account? To be tolerated only when I was useful. No, I said quietly. There isn't. Lena's shoulders slumped. Not even if she apologizes. I handed her a mug of tea. Words are easy, I said. Especially when people are desperate. But the people who love you don't wait until you walk away to notice you. She nodded slowly, staring into her cup. I get it, she said. Even if she doesn't. We stood there in silence. Two women from different generations, connected by one uncomfortable truth. Sometimes love has limits. Sometimes the only way to be seen is to step out of the room. Lena didn't stay long. She hugged me gently at the door, thanked me, and disappeared into the night. When I closed the door behind her, I realized something else had closed with it. A version of myself I had long outgrown. And as I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I knew the storm wasn't over yet. Because Rachel wasn't done trying. The next message she sent wouldn't ask for money. It would ask for something far more dangerous. I knew the tone had changed the moment I saw the subject line. Not frantic. Not angry. Careful. It arrived just after dawn, slipping into my inbox while the house was still quiet. I hadn't even finished my coffee when I opened it. This time it wasn't short. It wasn't polished. It was emotional. Long, messy. The kind of message people write when they finally realize they've lost control of the situation. Rachel told me she hadn't slept. That everything was falling apart. That she felt attacked, overwhelmed, misunderstood. She said she never meant to hurt me. That the live stream idea had spiraled. That her fiancé's parents were pressuring her. That she'd felt stuck. And then, halfway through the email, it happened. I'm sorry. The words were there. Typed out. Undeniable. I stared at them longer than I expected to. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would feel like to accept it. To reply. To smooth things over. To step back into the role I'd played my entire life. But then I kept reading. The apology was followed by explanations. Justifications. Context. Reasons why it wasn't really her fault. And at the end, buried beneath the emotion, was the real request. She needed reassurance. She needed support. She needed me to show up. Not as her mother. As her safety net. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. This was the moment I'd spent decades preparing for, without realizing it. I typed a response slowly. I love you, I wrote. But I can't fix this for you. I won't pay my way back into your life. And I won't accept an apology that comes only when you're afraid of losing something. I reread it twice. Then once more. And I sent it. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Later that afternoon, Evan called. Not angry this time. Quiet. Defensive in a tired way. She's not okay, he said. I know, I replied. You didn't have to go this far. Yes, I said softly. I did. He sighed. You're really serious about this, aren't you? I looked around my living room. The house I'd paid for. The life I'd held together. I've never been more serious about anything. We hung up without resolution. That night, I slept better than I had in years. But I knew something was still coming. Because when people lose control, they often try one last thing. And Rachel still hadn't said the one thing that actually mattered. The final confrontation wouldn't happen over email or text. It would come face to face. And it would change everything. She didn't call first. That's how I knew it was serious. I was halfway through folding laundry when I heard the car pull up outside. Not the slow roll of a neighbor. Not a delivery. Sharp stop. Purposeful. My chest tightened. I didn't rush to the door. I didn't hide either. I folded one last towel, placed it carefully on the stack, and waited. The knock came seconds later. This one was different from Evan's. Less confident. Even. Like the person on the other side wasn't sure they still had the right to ask. Open the door. Rachel stood there, eyes red, makeup smudged, arms crossed tightly over her chest like she was holding herself together by force alone. For a split second, she looked exactly like she had at 16, defiant and terrified all at once. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. No hugs, no small talk. The space between us felt deliberate. "I didn't come to fight," she said quickly. I need you to understand." He nodded. "Go on." We talk fast. Too fast. Words spilling over each other. About pressure. Expectations. Her fiancé's parents. How everything got bigger than she wanted. How she felt trapped. "I never meant to push you out," she said, voice cracking. "I just thought you'd understand." That word again. Understand. I let the silence stretch before answering. "I understood every time I put myself last," I said calmly. "I understood every sacrifice. Every check. Every flight. Every moment I swallowed disappointment so you wouldn't feel it." She flinched. "But what I won't understand," I continued, "is being treated like I'm optional." Tears spilled down her face. "I didn't think you'd take it this far." "I didn't either," I said softly. "But here we are." She reached for my hand, then hesitated, pulled back. "Do you even want to come anymore?" she asked. Question hung heavy. I thought about the email, the negotiation, the apology wrapped in fear. "I want to be wanted," I said. "Not tolerated." She nodded slowly, as if that truth was landing for the first time. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. I stood up. "That's the first honest thing you've said." She looked up at me, startled. "This isn't something I can fix for you," I said. "And it's not something you can undo with promises. This is about who we are to each other when things get hard." She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped. For the first time, she didn't argue. She left a few minutes later. Quietly. Without demands. Without anger. And as I closed the door behind her, I felt it. The balance had shifted. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the wedding, whatever form it took, was still coming. And so was the moment that would decide everything. The ceremony would happen without my money. But what it would cost her emotionally was something no one had calculated. The wedding did happen. Just not the way anyone had planned. I heard about it weeks later secondhand through Evan. A small backyard ceremony. Folding chairs. A borrowed arch. A handful of relatives and her fiancé's parents standing stiffly in the background. No vineyard. No sweeping views. No spectacle. No live stream link either. I wasn't invited. And for the first time, I didn't feel rejected. Felt finished. Not bitter. Not angry. Finished. Rachel sent one last email after it was over. Long, emotional. Softer than the others. Less defensive. More reflective. She said she wished things had been different. That she hoped someday we could find our way back to each other. I read it once. Then I archived it. Not out of punishment. Out of peace. Because something had shifted in me during those weeks of silence. Something I didn't know I was allowed to claim. My life stopped orbiting around being needed. I woke up without checking my phone first. I stopped bracing for disappointment disguised as obligation. I stopped measuring my worth by how much I gave away. I joined a pottery class. My hands learned something new. Clumsy at first, then confident. I started cooking for myself again, real meals eaten slowly. I went to dinner with friends who saw me, not my usefulness. And something unexpected happened. I began to feel whole. Rachel and I still speak occasionally now. Carefully. Honestly. Without the old assumptions. Without the unspoken expectation that I will always bend first. The distance taught us both something painful. And necessary. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's erasure. I didn't lose my daughter that day. I lost the version of myself who believed she had to disappear in order to be loved. And in that loss, I gained something far more valuable. My voice. My dignity. My life. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't owe endless sacrifice to people who treat your presence as negotiable. You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. And choosing yourself is not abandonment. It's survival. Sometimes the bravest act of love is stepping back and saying, "This is where I end." And I begin. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.